got something that is new, that is true. We got something just for you today. All around the nation, whoa, we can use sensation. Have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard?
Kids Incorporated. How many of you remember that one? I do, of course. Stacy Ferguson was my first idol growing up.
You are my best idea. The moment I became inspired, and we created something special here. A love to take us through the years.
She was also that of my cousin Mandy, who passed on in what we now know is March of 1989. Now that everything's straight, and but that's another vlog. She was also the idol of my friend Robert, who unfortunately crossed over the rainbow, as I like to call it, to Oz, which is our metaphor for heaven, 2 years ago in a car accident. But I had a dinner for my job tonight. I am a children's tutor at the library, and I went dressed as a very young Stacy Ferguson during her days on Kids Incorporated when I idolized her. That made me want to talk about the importance of being myself. A lot of what you're going to see on this channel is going to relate to my disability or my having survived childhood sex abuse or familial abuse in general. But I also want you guys to see more than that. I want you to see me in all of my splendor. I want you to see my different moods and how I dress, and that I really am who I am. Now, that said, I have to tell you all that I've taken a lot of flack for dressing like this. Most people who know me now accept it, especially in the last decade or so, because that's all they've seen. Not necessarily me dressing like Stacy, who, by the way, I forgot to mention, is probably better known to the world now as Fergie, although I don't prefer to think of her that way. Because I feel that Stacy, as Fergie, has lost herself, and she's oversexed and using her body to make her way in life, which is a terrible thing for any woman to do or have to do. I think that Stacy is worth more than that, but I also think that she had a very hard time growing up in the spotlight and maybe never really developed a strong sense of who she was. And yet here I sit, ironically emulating her on Kids Incorporated. But, as you guys will find out, I emulate many things, for many reasons, depending on my mood. It has to do a lot with who I'm thinking about and when. This week I've been thinking a lot about my cousin Mandy, as I always do, with the holidays coming up, because it was Christmas Eve when I had found out that she crossed over. And I'm also thinking about my friend Robert, who loved Christmas and loved Stacy when we were kids, like I said. So, this is kind of what came out of it. I guess you could say I tend to be very costumey, and my students really love all the glitter and things when I wear it. I had one little boy tell me last week that every time I come into work, I am a different person. But, this is really my way of coping with life. It helps me carry a happier light when my past and having to deal with certain things might otherwise knock me down and keep me a recluse. But, let's face it, it's weird. It's not normal. Okay, and the first people to give me flack about it were my own family. And I'm really not surprised about that, now that I think about it, because I talk about the trauma, yes, but in this other way, they had to see it coming out. And my mother asked me in the beginning, in my early 20s, why can't you just be normal? My answer to that is, firstly, there is no normal. What the hell is normal? And secondly, I wasn't going to come out of the kind of life that I had and be like everybody else. So I don't want to be like anyone else either. And you know what? I'm not taking drugs. I'm not hurting myself. I'm not being self-exploitive. So it's fine. And I certainly know what year it is. 30 years have gone by since you would have seen Stacy, or anyone for that matter, dressed like this. But it's just who I am, and it's funny. My coworkers tonight actually loved this. They told me how pretty I looked, and I posted pictures for my friends on Facebook, and they told me how beautiful I was. But that's how they know me now. They understand that this is the way I am, and that's my personality. However, I have to tell you all that when I went into the restaurant, which happened to be my favorite restaurant, just my luck, there was a girl I went to college with sitting in the front. As I wheeled into the banquet room to wait for my boss and coworkers. And she always gave me flack for dressing the way that I dressed, whether it was a Stacy Ferguson or I went around wearing a Wonder Woman crown or dressed up as Supergirl or what have you. And what I realized seeing her tonight, eating dinner with whomever she was with, is that she didn't have a smile on her face. She's a miserable little person. And when she whipped around and saw me, and I just smiled at her and I said, "Hello, Merry Christmas," she didn't know what to think. Now, there was a time in my 20s when I wasn't even sure that I was going to survive everything that happened, you know. But, I don't know, because of my friends, one friend in particular, you know who you are, sir. I'm not naming any names. But, one friend in particular, he just said, "You know what? You're you. You have to be you, and no matter who tells you otherwise, you have to be you. You do what you want. You can't change who you are inside for the love of anyone," is what he said. And so he has had a very profound impact in my life. And maybe someday I'll talk about that, maybe not. But I listened to him, and that's just sort of when I embraced all this crazy 80s dressing, and I just did what made me happy. And what I found is that the people who can't accept it, or they don't accept it, they are jealous of the lights of people that are just unafraid to be who they are. Because when you are who you're meant to be, you carry a happiness inside you. And I was almost 27 years old before I was able to fully embrace that. Anybody that tells you to be something different than what you are, they're a bully. And I have to say it again, they're not happy people. This is what I do instead of drugs. This is how I cope. This is who I am. And I just love the 80s. Generally speaking, things from that decade put a smile on my face. But if you see me in anything, especially like this, it all has meaning, and I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm not being outlandish on purpose. These are elements of who I am. So, my name is Kimmy, and hello. Night, guys.